In this lesson, you're going to learn English with the news. We're going to read a news article together so you can learn a lot of advanced vocabulary, advanced grammar, and even improve your pronunciation. Let's get started. Welcome to our article. We are talking about the famous slap that Will Smith gave Chris Rock about a year ago. So this is a continuation of that. And let me read the headline. Chris Rock unleashes on Will Smith and wife Jada a year after Oscars slap. So Chris Rock is this man here, Will Smith, of course, and Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars last year. Now, let me review some vocabulary in our headline. Chris Rock unleashes on. This is when you release or free something that affects someone. It's best to understand it in a very simple example sentence. The guards unleashed the dogs on the intruders. So the dogs are in a cage or in a fenced area, and they unleash the dogs. So they open the door and they release the dogs, they free the dogs, and the dogs will affect the intruders by chasing them, potentially biting them even. So really it's that negatively affects someone. Another example, you could say the company unleashed their legal team on us. So they made the legal team available, they released it, they freed the legal team, and it will affect me because they're going to sue me or do something specific. So that's the meaning of unleash on. Now, it's more common to have unleash something on someone. So for me, I feel like a word is missing. Maybe Chris Rock unleashes his anger on Will Smith. He makes his anger available. He frees it. He releases his anger and is directed towards Will Smith. It negatively impacts him. So I feel like it might make more sense if you include that word anger. Without it, that's just what's implied, because you can understand the context that this is not a happy situation. It's a negative situation. So Chris Rock unleashes his anger on Will Smith and wife Jada a year after Oscars slap. Let's continue on. In March 2022, Smith walked on to the Oscars stage and slapped Rock's face after the comedian made a joke about the appearance of Smith's wife. And this is exactly what you're seeing here. So Will Smith, he walked on to the stage and slapped him. Why? Because Chris Rock made a joke about Will Smith's wife. And the joke was about her appearance. Appearance is how someone physically looks. That is appearance. How someone physically looks. So when you go to a job interview, it's important to think about your appearance because people are judging you based on how you look. So you want to make sure that you wear nice clothing, that your hair looks professional, that your appearance is professional as well. About the appearance of Smith's wife. And Smith's wife's name is Jada Pinkett Smith. The King Richard star. Who is the King Richard star? Well, this is Will Smith. Will Smith. Because he was the star in the movie King Richard. If you haven't seen it, it's an excellent movie. I believe that's what Will Smith was at the Oscars for, his role in the movie. Now, star, you can use this as a verb. You could say Will Smith starred in the movie King Richard. So here, this is a verb. You know it's a verb because it's conjugated in the past simple. He starred. That's in the past. The King Richard star, Will Smith, returned to his seat in the audience and later won Best Actor. So he slapped Chris Rock. He then returned to his seat, which means he left the stage and sat in his seat and later won Best Actor. Quite an eventful Oscars. Did you watch the Oscars that year? Did you see the slap? What did you think about it? Now, I will note that all of these notes that I'm making here, you can download the lesson PDF. Just look in the description, look in the comment section below, and you'll see the link and you can download this lesson PDF. Let's continue on. Rock had been mostly silent about the incident until the end of his hour-long special. Let's talk about the verb tense here. We'll ignore the adverb mostly, and we'll just look at the construction. What verb tense is this? It's always easy to just try to put it in the base verb, to be silent, because we have been, which is the participle of the verb be, to be silent. Now, if this is had been silent, what verb tense is that? That's the past perfect. Past perfect. So we have our auxiliary verb have, and it's conjugated in the past simple had. And then we have our third form of the verb be, which is been. Rock had been silent. Now we use the past perfect when we're talking about a past action before another past action. Mostly means 80% silent, 90% silent. That's mostly. And this is an adverb. So I'll just say 80% silent would be mostly. Rock had been mostly silent about the incident until the end of his hour-long special. So this is the second past event. He had his hour-long special, and in the first part of that special, he was silent. In the second part, or in the very end, he was not silent. So he had been silent until, and then that's the second past action. The end of his hour-long special, when he accused Will Smith of selective outrage, also the name of his special. So Chris Rock is on TV. He's doing a TV show, which sometimes they just call a special. So an hour-long special is just an hour-long TV show. Now, it's not a regular series. It's just a one-time event, and that's why they call it a special. And it was 60 minutes, an hour long. And the name of the show was Selective Outrage. Okay? So remember our verb star. We could say Chris Rock starred in an hour-long TV special called Selective Outrage. And I can put this in the past simple because it's a completed action. This television special has already been aired, so it's a completed action. Now, during this TV special, he accused Will Smith. When you accuse someone of something, notice of, when you accuse someone of something, you say to that person, you did this. You did this. You said this. You claim that they did a specific action. Here's the definition. Now notice I added the word wrong to say that someone did something, but that something is wrong. With or without proof. Proof is evidence, some sort of proof. So here we have proof that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock because it was videotaped. Everybody saw it, right? This is the evidence. This is the proof. But let's say there was no camera and Chris Rock just accused Will Smith. maybe there isn't proof. But in this case, there is proof. Let me give you an example because I want you to notice the sentence structure. My coworker accused me of stealing from the client. Now, this is a very serious accusation. Accusation is the noun form of what I would call this. When someone accuses me, that is an accusation. Accusation. I'll just write that down. So that is a serious accusation. Let me move this here so you can see it. That is a serious accusation because if I stole something from the client, I could be fired. I will be fired, most likely. I could also go to jail. That is a very serious accusation, right? Now, what do you notice grammatically? You accuse someone of something. Now, because we have that preposition of, you need the gerund form, the ing form. So of, and then if you have a verb, you need the gerund. Now here, selective outrage, there is no verb. This is a something. This is a noun. So of course, you can have accuse of, and then you can have a noun as well. What is outrage? Outrage is anger. Anger directed towards someone. For example, I was outraged when I saw the kids throwing rocks at a dog. I was outraged. I was very angry, and my anger is directed towards, well, the situation and specifically the kids for throwing rocks at the dogs. Just an example. So that's outrage. Let me write that for you. It's anger directed at someone or directed at a situation. It could just be a situation that results in outrage, anger. Selective is when I choose to be angry in certain situations, but not other similar situations. So let's say last week I saw some kids throwing rocks at a cat, which is obviously an animal as well. And I wasn't outraged. So that's selective because I'm not outraged when kids throw rocks at animals overall. It's only a specific type of animal. So that means I'm selective with my outrage. So Chris Rock is saying that Will Smith had this anger. The anger was directed at Chris Rock, obviously, but Will Smith was selective. He could have been angry at other people, but he chose to be angry specifically at Chris Rock. It was selective outrage. So that's not a very common expression. The word outrage is common, but selective outrage isn't a very common expression, but now you know what it means. Have you seen this TV series called Selective Outrage? I have not. I did not know it existed until right now. Let's continue on. The comedian, that's Chris Rock. The comedian, I'll write that for you just so you remember. This is Chris Rock. Chris Rock. The comedian said Pinkett Smith, who's Will Smith's wife. The comedian said Pinkett Smith had stirred tension. This is the motion of stir, right? So let's say this is a cup of coffee. It's tea, but we could pretend it's coffee. And I can stir the milk or sugar in my coffee, for example. I can do the same thing with tea. I don't know why I changed this from tea to coffee, but I did. So stir. Now, in this context, when you stir tension, it means you allow existing tension to become available. A simple definition is to cause or allow feelings or emotions. In this case, the emotion is tension, which is like tense. When you're really tense with someone, tension to be available. So when you stir tension, it's like the tension is there, but then you might encourage that tension to be more available. You might say or do something that encourages the people to share their tension with each other. In part by calling for a boycott of the Oscars in 2016 when Rock was the host. So they're saying, how did she stir this tension? How did she cause this tension to be available? Well, in part by, this means partially, in part by, which is the same way as saying partially by. Partially by. You still need the preposition by if you use partially. Partially by. Now, of course, we have our verb in ing because by is a preposition. So we need our verb in ing. By calling for a boycott of the Oscars. When you boycott something, it means you avoid that something for a specific reason, a political reason, a religious reason. You feel that the company that you're boycotting, avoiding, did something wrong. So political, religious, or moral, a moral reason. You purposely avoid it. So let's say you feel the company Netflix, I'm just using an example of something that everybody knows. The company Netflix did something morally wrong, and you refuse to use Netflix. You're boycotting Netflix. So that's when you refuse to use a service. Refuse to use a service, or refuse to go to a company store. Calling for a boycott of the Oscars in 2016 when Rock was the host. Pinkett Smith said she was protesting the fact that Will Smith and other Black actors were not nominated. When you're nominated for an award, it means that you're selected to have the ability to win the award. Now, that could stir some tension, which causes that tension to become publicly available because Chris Rock was the host. So imagine you were hosting a TV show. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. But then your friend told everybody not to watch the show and not to go to the show, to boycott the show. That could be hurtful for you because you're on the TV show, right? So that could be one way she stirred the tension. Let's continue on. Rock, who is Black, who also is Black, joked about Pinkett Smith at the Oscars that year and again last year. So he joked about her on two separate occasions. Rock also brought up marital problems the Smiths have publicly discussed. Let's review this phrasal verb. The phrasal verb is bring up, to bring something up. And this is when you start to talk about a particular subject. So let's say you get to a meeting 15 minutes late. You might ask, has anyone brought up the latest report? So has anyone said, let's talk about the latest report? We need to talk about the latest report. That would be me bringing up the report. If I said, let's talk about the report. So if you get to a meeting late, you might want to know, well, what topics or subjects have been discussed? Let's continue on. Representatives for the Smiths did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Will Smith issued a statement of apology to Rock and to the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, the group that awards the Oscars. Okay, so the Academy Awards, that is the Oscar. So Will Smith, he issued a statement of apology. That's just a fancy way of saying Will Smith apologized. But he did it in a very public way. It was probably scheduled at a specific time, and he told people he was going to do it. He issued a statement of apology. He apologized. This is the verb form. So Smith apologized, that's in the past simple, to Rock for slapping him. That's a good thing to apologize for, right? So notice you apologize to someone for something. Now, because for is a preposition, my verb is in the ing form. So that's issued in a statement of apology. You would never say that. You would just use the verb to apologize. So let me write that just so it's clear. To apologize, that is the verb. And you apologize to someone for something. Let's continue on. The Academy banned Smith from attending the Oscars for 10 years. So because he was banned, he is not allowed to attend. Not allowed to attend the Oscars for 10 years. That's his punishment for slapping Chris Rock. The comedy special was the first event streamed live on Netflix. Remember, the name of that comedy special was Selective Outrage. So that's the comedy special. That hour-long special, Selective Outrage, was the first event streamed live on Netflix. I didn't know that. Which is testing the technology as it considers expanding into other real-time programs. Expanding into, this is a great expression. You can use it as is. There's a phrasal verb that means the exact same thing and is quite common. So let me share that. And that is branching out. As it considers branching out into other real-time programming. So if you use the branching out, you still have to use the into, which seems maybe a little confusing, but out is showing the exit, but then into is showing the entrance. So both of those prepositions are required. This is the phrasal verb form. You can also just use the verb expand as well, but this is very common. Netflix agreed to pay $40 million for 2 Rock comedy specials under a deal reached in 2016. According to a person familiar with the matter, Saturday's special was the second of the 2. Okay, so Selective Outrage was the second special. There was another special before that. I don't know if it was also called Selective Outrage or if it had a different name. And Netflix paid Netflix paid Chris Rock $40 million for the 2 TV specials. Is that a pretty good salary for 2 TV specials? I'd like to receive that for 2 of my YouTube videos. That would be pretty awesome. And that is the end of our article. Lots of great expressions in here. What I'll do is I'll go to the beginning and I'll read the article from start to finish. And this time you can follow along and focus on my pronunciation. So let's do that now. Chris Rock unleashes on Will Smith and wife Jada a year after Oscar slap. In March 2022, Smith walked onto the Oscar stage and slapped Rock's face after the comedian made a joke about the appearance of Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. The King Richard star returned to his seat in the audience and later won Best Actor. Rock had been mostly silent about the incident until the end of his hour-long special, when he accused Will Smith of selective outrage, also the name of his special. The comedian said Pinkett Smith had stirred tension among the 3, in part by calling for a boycott of the Oscars in 2016 when Rock was the host. Pinkett Smith said she was protesting the fact that Will Smith and other Black actors were not nominated. Rock, who also is Black, joked about Pinkett Smith at the Oscars that year and again last year. Rock also brought up marital problems the Smiths have publicly discussed. Representatives from the Smiths did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Will Smith issued a statement of apology to Rock and to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the group that awards the Oscars, the day after slapping Rock. The Academy banned Smith from attending the Oscars for 10 years. The comedy special was the first event streamed live on Netflix, which is testing the technology as it considers expanding into other real-time programming. Netflix agreed to pay $40 million for 2 Rock comedy specials under a deal reached in 2016, according to a person familiar with the matter. Saturday's special was the second of the 2. So what's your favorite new word from this article? Share it in the comments below, and I recommend that you watch this lesson next. I know you'll love it. And if you haven't, make sure you get your free speaking guide where I share how to speak English fluently and confidently in 6 easy steps. You can get it from my website right here. And now get started with your next lesson.